Welcome to the Predictive Playbook. I'm your host, John Ryan, and I'm very excited. It's Monday, April the 5th. I have my good buddy and pal and fellow professional sports bettor, Kyle Hunter of Kyle Hunter Sports, on the show with me again to talk hoops, which is a sport that he's extraordinarily good at. Kyle, welcome to the show, and how was your weekend?
Good to be back, John. Still been slumping in college hoops, to be honest. I was transparent about my results, and I have not had the season I wanted to have. Long-term college hoops has been a great sport for me, especially totals. We'll see if we can finish things off with a winner here. And, I expect that with all the closing line value I've been getting, I think in the long term I'm still good to go. But it's been a disappointing season, and I think it's good for us to be able to talk about when things are going good and when things are going bad, because it's also important for bettors to realize on your own, everybody has good streaks, everybody has slumps. The long term, the very long term, is what tells the difference. And the proof is in the pudding in the long term. Still think that my results long term speak for themselves, and we'll keep going from here, and let's see if we can find an edge here in this Gonzaga-Baylor game for tonight. I'd have to say, too, John, that game, UCLA-Gonzaga, man, that was something else. And really, most people thought that the first game was going to be the better game, the Baylor and Houston game. That one was just, snoozer. And then we get UCLA-Gonzaga, which was arguably the best game we've seen in many years, especially in the Final Four at that. So really exciting. Love the end of that game, how Jim Nance and Grant Hill and Raftery were getting really into it. I thought that was a great ball.
Yep.
Nance losing his voice while he's screaming. I thought that was pretty epic. And that's pretty much the reaction everybody had, right? And what a finish.
Yeah, that was, in my opinion, that was the best college basketball game in the history of the tournament, probably all of college basketball. Everybody knows Christian Leitner and that shot, but this was overtime, and it seemed to come out of nowhere. And suddenly, like, you're thinking, all right, well, we're going double overtime, and then bang. And, like, you couldn't help but to jump off the couch, even as tired as I was, you just jump up and go, oh, my God. And then you think of Gibson in the World Series for the Dodgers, and the announcer saying, I can't believe what I just saw. It just runs through your head. And then, like 2 minutes of that adrenaline rush, and then you go, oh, my God, the game's over.
Yeah, and then you got to wind down from it, right? I mean,
yeah.
Then you sit there, and I mean, I'm a night owl anyways.
That's
but
right.
For a little while afterwards, I'm sitting there like, man, the game was over like an hour and a half ago. I need to calm down.
It was... Truth be told, I actually was asleep during the third quarter. Unfortunately, I woke up, and I was like, expecting maybe Gonzaga to be ahead by 10, midway through the. Well, no, actually, it was almost mid. Yeah, it was midway through the half, the second half, and I was, much to my surprise, UCLA was winning. And then I checked the stats. Gonzaga's shooting 60% and losing.
Yeah.
And then I thought of the betting community, including the television major networks, were consistently saying that the only way UCLA can win is to play slow. And with my wife as testimony to this, I was like I needed to talk to somebody because I was going crazy. My head was going to explode. That no, they don't get it. They don't get it. In my opinion, I always say that. In my opinion, that way I don't sound like a complete jerk. That they have 7 guys on this team that were top 100 recruits as a high school player, and nobody's talking about that. And I actually tweeted it on a couple of the shows that I had switched. I saw the line on MGM go to 14.5, and it was just pizza money because I didn't have an official play for my clients. But I just did it. 14.5.
Yeah.
You did? Yeah.
I saw that. You're right on that.
Well, I mean, it partly was luck too, but it just was starting to bug me that the whole world was like on it, and I thought for the wrong reasons. I thought UCLA could, definitely have a better chance to play slow than play fast. But when the game started, you could actually see that this was going to be 15 rounds of heavyweight boxing type basketball. And I mean, how many haymakers were there? We were talking about that before we went on the air, and then the way it ended. And women's basketball. I even watched that because that was so exciting. And Stanford has back-to-back games winning by 1 point to take it all. And the first time they've won, I guess, in 30 years, or a pretty long time. So it just seems to be like one of those, one of those weeks of moments. And then we have the Masters coming up, which I'm a PGA nut, and it's just so nice now. It feels like we're getting out of that 2020 paralysis, where every day just felt like we were carrying around a 50-pound weight.
Yeah, it's nice to have a sense of some normalcy, and I think having a great game like that UCLA Gonzaga game, at first it reminds you how much we missed that tournament last year, and second, it feels like, oh, okay, this is what it feels like again, to have a
Right.
really good normal game, and even the fact that there was somewhat of a crowd, there's some crowd noise. It's nice to have, and I'm not really a big golf guy, but I do like the Masters. I think the Masters is pretty special. That'd be on my bucket list of things to want to go to at some point. The Masters is a pretty special one, and I'll be curious to see what you say about it. I don't really bet PGA, but it's exciting. I mean, we got the Masters, and then we'll have horse racing coming up, things like that. NBA playoffs. The NBA is not too far left here in the regular season, and then obviously we got plenty of baseball. So even though college basketball is ending, we still have plenty going on in the sports world.
Yeah, we sure do. Yeah, and for those that you already know this, Kyle, but I have David Behrman of ESPN. He's been on. I think this will be the 7th week on Tuesdays, and hopefully his schedule will permit another visit to us. And his picks have been just unbelievably good. So for golf, I thought like I was one of the better guys on the planet, humbly said. But he's cashed every single week. And he's actually helped make my DraftKings, the lineups, better. Because there's one guy in those lineups that always kind of doesn't make the cut. And then at that point, you're just hoping to cash. But when you get all 6 through, that's when the cheesecake really becomes pretty close to taking. And really because of him, I made a change in the 2 of my players' championship lineups that allowed the one to finish 814th out of 158,000. So, I was 30 points away from that 1.2 million. So, and that's why you play those big events. The odds and the payouts are so stacked against everybody that it's ridiculous. But you always have that hope, no matter who you are, that one of these days, boy, the sun is going to rise and this is going to be my day. But I'll take finishing in the top 1,000 in every single major for the next 10 years. That would be just as good too. Well, not really, but it would be fine.
It'd be fine. And John, be ready for the fact that sometime this week I'm going to be asking you who I should put in my DraftKings matchups for the PGA Championship for the Masters, because honestly I don't do that very often. But I'll tell you what, for somebody who doesn't love golf, partially because I'm terrible at golf myself, but I've in general been pretty good at athletics and sports, but golf I've never really gotten the hang of. But it's nice to have something to root for, and if I have something to root for there, I could probably convince the wife and kids to have a TV on the Masters there on Sunday. So let me send you a message to see who you like in DraftKings or FanDuel this weekend. So
that's yeah, I look forward to it. It was about time that I give you a couple winning picks after the ones you gave me.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. We got one big game here to talk about, right?
We do. And this is I guess the one thing the takeaway from the Gonzaga game, Kyle, was how much are they going to have left in the tank? Because a long time ago I played sports at a pretty high level, and I know, even when you're that young, how much that possibly can take out of a team, let alone a player. But it's not like they have to carry it any more than 2 days. So, they played Saturday, day off. Very short period of time to calm down. Like you said, it took a while to calm down after the game so you could even get to sleep. Imagine what they were like.
Yeah.
And then constantly, I'm sure that the team and the guys like Timmy and the Suggs and all of them were saying, "Hey, wait, we're not done yet. This not done yet." And hopefully that happened for the benefit of them. I can't imagine any head coach not reinforcing that and saying, like, get over yourselves now. That game's over. We got one to go. And and the thing that blows my mind, Kyle, I got to say this. I told this to you before, is that it just seems like, if somebody can tell me I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. But it seems like the whole world is on Baylor because Gonzaga played one of their worst games against a bad team, referencing UCLA. And when I started hearing this kind of wave of thought process, I was like, I must have been watching like a soccer match or something that I thought that the game was that different. Because I thought UCLA, is a team that we grossly underestimated. And I think one of the takeaways from the tournament is that no matter what, when you have 7 guys that are in the top 100, and not all 7 of them are freshmen, and 6 of the 7 are sophomore or junior, most of them, when you're in the top 100, you probably played for a state championship. And when you play for a state championship and you're one of the top 100, it usually means you put a lot of work in, you had good work ethic, and you know how these things go. You have the experience and the pressure of those state tournaments. So I was kind of like wow, I thought UCLA was one of the great stories of the tournament, and then the way they played against Gonzaga. I mean, they elevated Gonzaga's play, in my opinion. They took Gonzaga to a whole nother level, which is scary. But I think I already said they were shooting 60% and they were losing. So how can you say like they played poorly? Oh man, I'll get off of it.
Well, that to that point, I think I would say that if you like Baylor in this game, I don't think you should like them because you think Gonzaga was bad last game. If you like them because of a matchup, that's fair. That's fine. There's some stats that might give them the advantage, but Gonzaga has beaten everybody except for UCLA and then West Virginia earlier in the season by 10 points or more. They've been really good all year. And so you say that the look-ahead line here was -6.5. Now we're getting 4.5 or some fours, juice fours. If you can get a 4 at -115, I'd take that above a -110 on a 4.5. Now, if you can get a reduced line on 4.5, then that could be a different story. But I have to say, I don't think we should be saying, like you said, I don't think we should be sitting here thinking Gonzaga looked terrible. I mean, what a bad team. They're not what they should have been. UCLA played great in that game, and Juzang,
yeah, they did.
I mean,
yep.
What a player. That guy is like, as the younger people say now, that guy's a walking bucket. I mean, that guy, yep. he can get buckets wherever he goes. I don't think it was even that bad a defense. I think that he was putting up some really impressive shots. UCLA had a really good game plan. I think you could question, like you said, whether Gonzaga comes out in this game looking amazing from the beginning. So maybe you don't want to take them in the first half, or maybe you want to wait to bet them live. We've talked about live betting a lot because there's a chance that you could get a Gonzaga -2 or 1.5 or 1 or something like that if Baylor starts hot here. I do like Gonzaga in this game if I were taking a side, John. I think that, 2 points line move this late in the season, you and I both know that we have seen these two teams a lot. We kind of know what Baylor is. We know what Gonzaga is. You're going to give me a 2-point line move based on one game. It's hard for me to not like the side that, that you just reduced by 2 points. So I think Gonzaga is the side that I would prefer in this game. Baylor, to me, if you look at, I'm going to give you some stats here for everybody. Baylor's struggled a lot with post defense this year. They're 38th percentile in the country in post-up defense. To me, that's a problem against Drew Timme and Gonzaga. I mean, they're going to give Timme the ball a lot here. We've seen that already. We can talk about the props here in a minute a little bit, but I think Drew Timme overs would make some sense because they're going to give him the ball a lot. He's going to touch the ball a lot in that game. If he misses, he doesn't usually miss very often. If he does miss, I would think he'd get quite a few rebounds at least. So some of those props could make some sense. But Baylor defensively in the post and right by the basket has not been very good. Gonzaga outscores opponents by 21.8 points per game in the paint. That's epic. I mean, that's
It
tremendous.
is.
As good as
Yeah.
you ever see. Baylor's +8 in the paint, which is pretty good too, but +21 is crazy good. Gonzaga to me has a big edge there in the paint, and that's hard for me to look away from. I will say if you're looking for an edge, Baylor in points per game off turnovers is number one in the country at 21.4 points per game off turnovers this year. Gonzaga only allowing 10 points per game off giveaways, which is in the 97th percentile in the country. So, can Baylor force those turnovers? Can they cause Suggs, Kispert, guys like that to turn the basketball over a lot? I think they will probably force some turnovers here, but I don't think it's going to be what we've seen them force against some of the other teams. I think Gonzaga is better taking care of the basketball than most of the teams they've played against. One other stat here that stands out to me is Baylor has contested 57% of opponents' catch and shoot jumpers this year. Gonzaga has only had 29% of their catch and shoot jumpers contested. So this is a strength on strength. Gonzaga, John, you've talked about this before. I've said the same thing. I have a little bit of coaching background in basketball, and basketball is my single favorite sport. So I will say Gonzaga's ball movement, passing the ball around, is exceptional. Nobody in the country is even close to as good at that. So I don't think Baylor's seen a team all year that can pass even close to as well as Gonzaga does. I think Gonzaga is a really tough team to defend. Now, as far as the total, let's just say this real quick too. This is a really high total. I can't take over 159.5 or something like that in a stadium in a championship game. I know these are two great offenses. We both know that. It's possible it could be 92-90 and we wouldn't be stunned. But this is a really high total for a championship game. All the systems that you look at say under is the right play if it's team A versus team B with this total in a neutral site. So, you're just trusting those long-term systems if you take the under in a game like this. Like I said, I can't take the over. As far as the side, I do certainly lean Gonzaga. John, first half, Gonzaga 19-10 ATS this year on the first half. I'm kind of curious what you think on the first half bet because we like to talk about that. My concern with taking Gonzaga -2.5 here in the first half is there could be a bit of a hangover from that last game. It is the national title game, and I trust Mark Few quite a bit. But it wouldn't stun me if Baylor starts stronger and Gonzaga then gets into the game and gets going. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on the first half here?
Yeah, I like that playing over on the Gonzaga first half. I almost like equally as much playing Gonzaga's game total with a live in-game bet, presuming that that's going to be available.
Yeah.
I haven't seen those yet, but for the championship game, I wouldn't be surprised if a place like MGM or DraftKings, FanDuel would have that. So if you can do that, because I do agree with you, I think Baylor is going to come out here and look to, light the wick, so to speak, on the cannon. And for the simple reason that if you are coaching Baylor and you watch that Gonzaga game and the emotional and physical exertion that was put into that win, you would want to come out of the gate firing away and put as much pressure on them defensively. Maybe even start out with a defensive full press just to see if you generate turnovers. And and we're talking about the championship game, so I'm sure Gonzaga has already had meetings about this possibility that Baylor's going to come flying out of the gate. So not necessarily something that can be executed, but if it happens, then you're going to get real value with Gonzaga because we see what they do when they fall behind. BYU comes to mind. The second half in that game was an absolute demolition. And the shocking thing to me, we're math guys, we're data guys, is that on my stuff, there's no sign of Gonzaga even approaching a point where they would be subject to a regression. They're getting better and better and better. And that's where I got so adamant about, how can you say they played one of their worst games just because UCLA was a play-in team? I mean, that's somebody that doesn't remember, Virginia Commonwealth, for example. So I like that play quite a bit, especially if there's the in-game stuff. Baylor scored 40 in the first half of each of their last two games. So this could be, almost a I don't know if I would do quarters. I don't know if I ever bet a quarter in my life, to be honest with you. It just seemed like something I was going to lose. But I think first half, maybe the game, first half over, and then come back with the under in the live game. Because if it goes over, you're probably going to be looking at possibly 170. And Creighton and Gonzaga earlier in the tournament. You could have had a beautiful middle in that game of about 30 points by doing the live in-game betting. We're at about the same total as that game. Yeah, it was. It was like 157 and a half, if I remember right. And you can go and do the live in-game at anything above 170 and bet the under. And then look for 148 and take the over. And see, I think if you get both ends of that because of the volatility that will be inherent in this game, you're going to have a great chance to middle the whole thing.
Yeah, Same thing happened. Sorry, same thing happened in the USC and Gonzaga game as well. So they had back-to-back games, Creighton game and the USC, where they had really high-scoring game going on. The live total jumps 15, 20 points. And then it ends up falling under the game total. So there would have been a massive middle opportunity. If they start out shooting amazing, you want to pay attention to the pace. Is the pace going to be extremely fast? Because, John, I think there is some question here whether Baylor wants to play as fast as Gonzaga does. Because if I'm Baylor's coach, I'm saying I don't think I want an 80 possession game where it's going to be 95 to 90. I think I want to win with defense, run the clock a little bit, try to get good shots at the end of the shot clock, because Gonzaga wants to play really fast. They're excellent in transition. So if Baylor's making shots but using time, you could really set yourself up well for an in-game under, because you would think regression would come, and if they're going to keep the pace lower, then the under could be a good play. Now, if at the beginning of the game they're using the full court press and shooting within 10 seconds every time and it's just back and forth, then I'm not going to bet the in-game under. It depends on how the game is going. We'll see in those first few minutes how the pace of the game goes and what both teams want to do. Like I said, I feel like we know what Gonzaga wants to do. They want to run. They want to score a bunch here. I mean, they've been scoring 80-something or 90-something almost every single game. And the question is, what does Baylor want to do? I think Baylor would be wise to try to slow this game down to some degree. If they do slow this game down and they're red hot at the beginning, you catch an under, you could get some good value there. Also, like I said, I kind of like betting Gonzaga here. I think I'm going to have Gonzaga in some way here, John, whether it's a pregame position on -4 or a live bet on Gonzaga in this one. I think Gonzaga has a good chance in this one. And I as a fan of college basketball, I think it'd be kind of fun to see a team go undefeated again. It's been so many years since that's happened. It'd be fun to see history happen once again.
It would, and as we try to teach people and remind ourselves, nothing is ever due to happen. But this one kind of feels like I don't want to call basketball a fairy tale, because that's not exactly the word I'm looking for, but it feels right to see this happen. Nothing against Baylor, but I think this is a team, should they pull it off tonight, that it would go down in history as one of the best ever. It really would. And I would like to say that I actually saw that game.
Yeah.
But they really, I had my suspicions about Gonzaga throughout the whole year. And, I'd watch them play against a Pepperdine, which isn't a bad team. At least in that conference, they're not a bad team. And I couldn't get a real read on it. I kept thinking that, wow, maybe this is the year they come to the tournament and they don't have the ability to step up to the competition level. But whatever's in the water out there in Washington is obviously helping them switch gears in a hurry. That UCLA team gave. I mean, that was just, the whole game was just so enjoyable, and amateur athletes, at least for now, giving us like one of the best sports nights you can even dream of. So, tonight, no matter what, it's probably going to feel like a letdown, but maybe not. Maybe there's still more good things to come. I know you wanted to look at some player props.
Yeah, let's talk about the player props. I know DraftKings has quite a few, right?
Okay.
So I think, like I said,
they do.
Drew Timmy, I think, is going to have a big game here. It's going to surprise me if he's not a big part of their offensive game plan. I'm looking right now, John, at the points, rebounds, and assists. Over 31 and a half, I have to say that's not a low number. So, I mean, they have it set pretty high. I do certainly lean pretty strongly to the over on that one. I think Timmy is going to get a lot of rebounds in this game. He's good for a few assists per game usually, and he's going to score a lot in this game. It would surprise me if he doesn't. You know, if he's missing, it's going to be different than what he has been doing. And like I said, Baylor's post defense is their big weakness. And that's not a good weakness to have when you're going up against Drew Timmy. So I think the over on Drew Timmy makes some sense there. I guess if we just look at points, Timmy is at 21 and a half, juiced pretty heavily to the over. I think I like the rebounds, assists, and points better than I like just the points by themselves here, because in a game that should be fairly high scoring, and a game where Gonzaga gets quite a few second chance points, a lot of offensive rebounds, second chances, I think Timmy will get plenty of those. I think getting the points, rebounds, and assists makes sense here for me. John, what kind of thoughts do you have on some of these props?
Yeah, I think one of the things you really highlighted well was Timmy in the post, because Baylor is very aggressive on defense. They don't just kind of match up zone type of thing. They try to anticipate passes. They try to clog the passing lanes, and that actually is all gone when you think about it, because if Gonzaga goes down the court in a half court set and looks to get the ball to Timmy pretty much every single time, there's not going to be any passing lanes to clog. And then what will happen is, I'm running this through my head as I speak, but think about it. Timmy scores the first, he's 4 for 4 and doing layups. So when does Baylor double team? If you double team, then all of a sudden you got the perimeter. Somebody's going to be wide open. And you're talking about one of the most efficient shooting teams that we've ever seen. So I think what I'm going to pay attention to is if they successfully get it to Timmy early on and he's converting into scores, when does Baylor have to start double teaming him? And who on that team can double team him and make a difference? That's another thing.
Yeah, and who are they going to cheat off of for Gonzaga?
Right.
I mean, there's no one guy that you can just say, we'll just let him shoot the open shot on Gonzaga's team. I mean, you can't do that with these guys. You can't do that with Suggs. You can't do that with Kispert. Ayayi played great in that last game as well, and he's a very high talent. Nimhard's a good player. Gonzaga is a tremendous team, very well balanced. And honestly, you could say if they start double teaming Timmy, he could probably get several assists in a game like this, because there's going to be some guys wide open that are probably going to make some of those shots. So I like Timmy over. I don't know. I'm kind of looking here as we go, John, as far as whether I like any others. Yeah.
What about Teague?
Teague, let's see, what has he got on here?
He's got the highest juice to the over on his points. He's 14.5, and it's over 143 juice.
Okay.
So I'm thinking that's probably not a good bet to do over, but maybe it's offset with the points, rebounds, assists.
Yeah, I can't take over with that kind of juice. I mean, I'm kind of allergic to that kind of juice when it comes to player props. I don't think that's a good way to win in those in the long run. Teague is an interesting guy because, that shot is so awkward. He doesn't have the normal shot. He kind of loads up and shoots from so low. It's kind of what you would see from a younger player, sometimes even, in women's basketball. And it's not really a diss on him. The guy's a great shooter. If you can make him, you make him. Having said that, I don't know that I love the over on his. I think, with that kind of number and the juice, I would lean to the under there, because Gonzaga is a better defensive team than most people realize. I mean, UCLA just lit them up, but UCLA was tremendous in that game. Like you said,
Yep.
I don't think that was Gonzaga being bad defensively. I think that was just good offense. Baylor's offense is obviously very good, but Baylor has plenty of guys that can beat you. It doesn't have to be Teague either. Mayer has really impressed me in this tournament for Baylor. So I know his numbers are certainly lower. He doesn't play as much. I see Mayer three-pointers on there at 1.5 over plus 155. I think that's not a terrible bet. Mayer has shot pretty well from the outside here. I think he gets some run here in a game like this because I think he's a good matchup for some of the guys on Gonzaga compared to some of the other guys that Baylor has. So I kind of like Mayer overs, and in a game like this. As far as the other Baylor guys, I think Davion Mitchell sometimes passes up his shot more. He's a very good assist guy. I don't love betting overs with a guy like him because I don't even know how many times he'll shoot it. Maybe this is the game he does shoot it quite a bit, maybe not, but he's a facilitator quite a bit of the time. We've seen also John Butler for Baylor he's their best player overall, and he hadn't really had a great game, and then he came out in the first half against Houston and just lit it up. Didn't do as much in the second half of that game, but I think Butler has a lot of upside as well. So if I were taking an over, I'd probably look for Butler overs here in this game. I think that, when you get to this stage, your very best player is the type of guy that steps up. I mean, you either win this game and get a championship, or you fall just short, and you always have this to think about. So your top players usually try to make big plays in a game like this.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm actually looking at Jared Butler as you were speaking, and over 2.5 3-pointers made is getting plus 130, and I think that's something I might take to the window if you can't tell me a reason not to.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like that at least somewhat. I see his points prop at over 16.5 minus 103. I have to think about that one a little bit more. I might like the points prop a little bit better, but what did you say the juice was on the 3-pointer?
130 plus 130.
Plus 130. See, that's the difference is you're getting plus 130. I think Butler's capable of having a really big game here. So I think if there was one guy I thought could have a really big game for Baylor, it wouldn't surprise me if Butler goes out and just has a tremendous game here. I think he's the type of guy that can dominate and do it by himself. He can create his own shot or get someone else open. I think in a game like this, he's probably going to want to take more shots than what he has been in some of the others because he is their best scorer. Butler's a tremendous player with high upside. So I'd say Jared Butler overs make a lot of sense to me. So if I were taking overs for one player on Baylor, it'd be Butler and then Timmy for Gonzaga. Obviously, it's not John. These are not really under the radar. Everybody knows that these guys are great. But like I said, I feel like in big games, these top players get a lot of chances. Their coaches say, hey, if we're going to lose, I want to lose with my best player getting a lot of looks. After the game, if Butler gets 4 or 5 shots, everybody's going to say, how does your best player get 4 or 5 shots? You can't let that happen. I can't imagine that's going to happen. It'd be pretty surprising. So I think in a game like this, the biggest players are going to get their chances.
Yeah, maybe with that said, too, we add Teague to the equation here. Have to remind people that are just viewing this now, the first part of this show was Gonzaga, and Gonzaga. But now we're looking at player props. And even if, Baylor falls behind by 20, Butler and Teague would be two guys. They led the team in three-point attempts, combined for 11.2 per game. They're making 4.5, and Jared Butler averages 2.5 makes per game, which is the line. And I bet Teague is probably, what is Teague? Because they wouldn't make the line at 2, I don't think.
For threes?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2.5 plus 125.
Yeah, so that's interesting because Butler actually makes more per game for the season, and he's getting higher juice.
Yeah,
not much, but
I like Butler there because Butler has been a bit passive in some of these games here recently, and like I said, it would surprise me if he's not more aggressive in a game like this. Because also, let's be honest, Baylor hasn't had very many close games here. I mean, they could coast in the second half of that Houston game. That's not going to happen in this game. I mean, if Baylor wins, it won't be totally stunning, but they're not going to win easily against a team like Gonzaga. So I think that Butler overs make sense to me in a game like this. The other thing is, I just want to say real quick too, John, when we talked about it on, I'll give a quick plug for Better Odds Sports Betting last week with Kiev O'Neill and then both of us. I did take the Suggs most outstanding player. I got plus 600. I see right now plus 110. So
yeah,
even though I'm saying Timmy overs, there's a little part of me that's like, I really hope Suggs is the one that has a big game here because I need that plus 600, right? If Timmy has too big of a game, then he's going to be the one that gets it. So he's the threat to the Suggs bet if Gonzaga does win this one outright.
Yeah, and there's no other player close between those two on Gonzaga. It's basically a Yayi, and yeah, he had a very kind of a breakout game against UCLA. But I mean, he'd have to put up 30,
Yeah.
which is not likely if Gonzaga's going to win. It's always possible, but it really is I would say a 3-horse race. Timmy, Suggs, Mitchell, Jared Butler's plus 700, but the rest of them, in a one-game situation like this, and after all, it's the player's going to be on the winning team. Can't imagine that wouldn't be the case, but
I don't hate plus 700 on Butler if you think you like Baylor in a game like this, because like I said, he hasn't had an amazing tournament. If you like Baylor here and you say, well, do I want to take Baylor money line? Maybe instead of Baylor money line, you take something like Jared Butler and you hope he has a big game. Obviously, Baylor could win and he not be the most outstanding player. But, we're looking for value here. John and I have talked about this before. We're looking for plus EV bets. I think plus 700 is a good price. In fact, John, I see some of the other books at plus 500 or plus 550. So, as we know, there's a big difference between plus 500 and plus 700. So,
yeah, there is.
Definitely want to shop around and get the very best there. Both of us think Gonzaga will win this game, but Baylor certainly has a shot. They're a very good team. Butler plus 700, I think, is a decent bet as well.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I'm definitely on that plan. And then I guess the other thing we mentioned about doing the in-game and looking for, the game flow volatility, where I specifically have a Python app that I'm beta testing in the NBA now. In the college level, whenever you go 3 minutes to 5 minute period, averaging 7.2 points per minute or more, that's a very high pace. It's unsustainable. That pace puts you up above 200, and all-time highest scoring game in the NCAA tournament history is 193. So that's why you would use that, because it's unsustainable. And then, if that happens early on, then you're really in the catbird seat, because it's going to slow down, and then anything that is averaging 2.5 points per minute for a 3 to 5 minute stretch, then it's going to nosedive, possibly, as Kyle said, under 150, 148. And then you do that. And then you have your middle, and you just see how the rest of the game goes. But I do like the fast start, and then look to bet the under in the 170s, and then see what happens. So I'll be doing my best to post that on Twitter. A couple of people suggested Discord, which I use Discord, but I use it for Python, so there's nothing fast moving in that at all. So, if like you and I set up a Discord for live betting purposes only, and communicated that way as opposed to the Twitter, it actually might be more efficient in terms of getting the information to everybody that wants it. Because you can miss a tweet.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think that'll be something to think about. I know more people have been using Discord here as we go. So technology changes, things improve. So, and that'll be something that, we're wrapping up here college basketball season now. But next season, live betting will probably be even bigger than it is right now. I think that'll
for sure
be growing as we go. So it's harder for us to give out live bets, because you take a live bet and then somebody sees it 2 minutes later and they say, wait a minute, John, how'd you get that line? I see, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
It's like, well, that's what it was,
Yep.
2 minutes ago. It can change really fast. So, it's harder for us to give those out than it is the pregame bets, but it also can be very profitable. And like we've said before, there should be a caveat put here and a kind of a disclaimer to say, be careful with the live betting. Don't just go crazy and just, double down, triple down, quadruple down. And then at the end of the game, you say, I just bet this thing 4 times and lost everything. That's not what John and I are talking about. We're not talking about, you have a pregame bet on Gonzaga and you end up betting 5 times what you had pregame, and then they lose by a point on a buzzer beater and you're just crushed. We're talking about trying to look for swings in the market. And like John said, points per possession being either so ridiculously high or so low that it's not going to keep going that way. So I think that's something to point out. And then also, John, we talked about it right before we came on live on air here. I want to say, some of the props here, we like props, but who's going to score the first point, who's going to get the first rebound, things like that. Are points going to be odd or even in the game? Just why waste your money on something like that? I mean, it really is a guess and something like that. And if you want to just go flip coins, I mean, you might as well do something other than sports betting.
Yeah, that's well said. That's yeah. I have nothing to add to that because that is ridiculous. There's no skill involved in that. There's no probability analysis, and there's no nothing. I mean, that's just absolute 100% luck. But whoever wins it's going to think they're an absolute genius.
They're going to be a genius for one day, right?
and I would feel the same way if I was right.
Right.
The one thing I wanted to mention about the Masters here, and it'll be interesting to see if our good pal David Behrman at ESPN tomorrow concurs with me, is Robert McIntyre has been playing on the tour for a couple years now and kind of flying under the radar a bit. And he's at 200-1 to win the Masters. So what can happen here is, I don't necessarily think, confidently he's going to win it. But let's say he's in the top 10 going into Sunday. He's not going to be plus 200 anymore. And a lot of these places now will offer to buy back your bet. Like MGM does it. And there's other ways to hedge it as well. But I've never considered taking a 200-1 underdog, but this kid is good, and I think we saw in the last year plus with the COVID, this seems to make anything possible. We saw games in the NCAA tournament where the results were just anything but what we had expected, including the Suggs 3-pointer at the end of overtime. That was just a beautiful moment. But that's one guy in the Masters I think will be on my DraftKings because he's pretty cheap. 200-1, he's flying definitely under the radar. He's there with Zach Johnson, who I also don't know why he's 225-1. The betting market for this Masters is put it basically in the hands of about 7 guys, and it's the names you would think. Johnson, DeChambeau, Spieth, who that was a great win yesterday. One of I guess the first time in many years he's won. But he's playing back to the Jordan Spieth of old. John Rahm, the Spaniard, always a threat. Justin Thomas. He was practicing yesterday because I read all these things. And a pretty focused type of practice session, too. And that tells you a lot about what's going through his head. He won the Players. And to add this in the same year, then all of a sudden the U.S. Open comes up, and now we have a really huge story. McIlroy, 19-1 playing, kind of. If he would stop, I've heard this from a lot of people. If he would stop trying to hit the ball as far as he possibly can, kind of like Bryson does, and go back to the swing that won him the U.S. Open by double digits, he probably will be a threat. But at 19-1, there's probably value in him because he hasn't really been a threat. He's been there, but not made the run late on Sunday. But that's an introduction to the show for tomorrow.
Yeah, John, I was going to ask your thoughts on Jordan Spieth. I knew he hadn't won in a long time, and then he wins yesterday. Maybe it would have been better if he didn't win yesterday, if you wanted to bet him, because the line would have been better. At the same time, you could say it gives him a lot of confidence going into something like this. So, do you think a guy like Jordan Spieth has any value on the line now, or do you think? Maybe you haven't got a chance to think about that one too much yet.
Well, it was running through my mind while I was watching the final round because he really held it together when Charlie Hoffman was putting a little bit of pressure on. Hoffman birdied a hole. I believe it was like 15, late in the round, and got within 1. And then, of course, you start thinking like, oh boy, we're not going to watch this again, are we? And he really held it together. And he was, he played like a champion. He played like he knew how to finish it, and he did. And, there was really never any moment where he was sweating. And that's what we saw when he won the Masters the first time. So, he's been there, he's done it, he's coming off a win. Normally, I would never take a guy that won the week before the Masters. You never take a guy that wins the par 3 contest on Wednesday because nobody's done it. So, but I don't know if you know about the par 3, Kyle, or not. It's basically a family event.
Yeah.
There's 18 par 3s, and it's really cool. Tony Finau, well, I guess it's 2 years ago, dislocated his ankle after a hole-in-one, celebrating. And then he played. He actually played the whole event after that happened.
Yeah.
But it's just one of the classic events of any sport there is. I mean, I don't know how else to put it.
Right. Yeah. The Masters is epic, and I'll be curious to tune in to your thoughts on the tournament there, because like I said, I don't really have any value to add when it comes to golf. I'm looking to try to get some action on it maybe this weekend. I will say one guy I like to root for in golf. I like Colin Morikawa.
Yep.
I see he's almost 40-1 at a couple places here. I'd be curious to get your thoughts and David Behrman's thoughts on him, because I know he's very solid, a really good youngster. Really classy, nice acting guy.
Yep.
I like to root for him. So I'd be curious to see what your thoughts on him are as well.
Yeah, he's a guy that could be on the list this week, especially guessing what David might be thinking, because he's very young, but he's seasoned. He's been there too. 31 and a half. I have plus 3150 to win. But here's where there's another whole betting market. You can bet top 5, top 10, top 20. So for him to be in the top 10, you're getting 3-1, and I actually like that bet better than if he won. It's highly likely he's a top 10 finisher. They also have top 20, which has everybody's name on. Oh, here he is, plus 110. So that's even money. And that's a pretty strong likelihood he's going to finish in the top 20. That's a top third of the field after the cut. So, even though you're only plus 110, I think that's a look for sure. And then Tommy Fleetwood, I think it will be on my radar too. I see him at plus 188 to finish in the top 10 or top 20. So I'm sure he's going to be on my radar. Another guy, just a European, flying under the radar, great ball striker, is getting better tee to green, which isn't a totally necessary thing at Augusta. But it's better to be in the fairway. It's better to be in the certain part of the fairway at Augusta, so you can attack 13 and 15, which are the par 5s, and number 2, which is a par 5. So, yeah, I just can't wait. I mean, this is between tonight's game and Thursday morning. Yeah, how does Jim Nance says that? He says, hello, friends, and then it's the Masters like none other. That's yeah.
Yeah, tradition like no other.
A tradition that's it.
Yeah, that'll be nice. And then going forward, we'll have to talk some NBA too as we look forward here. I don't know. Did you want to talk any NBA here real quick? Or?
Well, yeah, we certainly covered a lot of other topics that we didn't brief each other on, but we kind of zig and zag, and on the golf course they call it hamming and egging. But I do have a system here. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see here. It's obviously an NBA one. So I think you can see, I call this one defensive momentum, and I try to keep it nice and short here, so it's easy to follow, easy to track, because a lot of you have to do this manually, unfortunately, but it's worth it. So you're going to bet on home favorites of fewer than 9.5 points, coming off a game which they allowed 35% shooting. So if I covered up the bottom, it'd be an interesting trivia question, because I would not have guessed Toronto Raptors. But they're the play. Toronto has not played well for a long period of time, really. And they allowed 35, actually it was less than that. It was 32% shooting in their last game. And that Toronto has a defensive characteristic to it, even though the team is different now than it was when they made those runs in the playoffs. So, And then the subset is a non-divisional opponent. So Washington is not in the same division as Toronto. Toronto's in the same division as Brooklyn and the Sixers. And I think they are in last place in that division. So you have a home favorite that's in last place in a division playing another team that's out of the division, and with the home team allowing 32% or less in their last game. So pretty simple. And you can see it's done really well the last 5 seasons. So you would have $100 better, roughly would have made about $18.50, I guess, off the top of my head. And that's just doing that blindly, And there's nobody out there that says you can't just take one little betting system and follow it religiously and give it a shot. You have just as much chance doing that as certainly better chance of making money at that than betting on who's going to score first in the basketball game tonight.
Yeah,
it's like the coin flip in the Super Bowl.
Right. Yeah, this defensive thing too. A lot of times in a case like this, like you're showing here. You're going to have a team that's not laying too many points. I mean, you have fewer than 9.5 points. And in this case, we have Toronto who's laying, 5 points? Yeah, 5 points here. I think I like Toronto in that one, John. I'm going to have to bet this one on my own. I'm going to tail you on this one and your system here. I didn't have any plays for clients tonight. I'm going to bet something on Toronto here in this game. I'll have something to follow there in the NBA as well. As far as a couple other thoughts, I wanted to say, John, that NBA. One thing I like to do late in the season is I like to try to look for games between two teams that have a lot to play for that could go under the total. So especially divisional opponents, you see these teams that play each other a lot, and then they're really close in the standings, and you get a total that's about the same as it would be in the other games. But at the end of the regular season, those have been good unders. And at the end of the regular season, you get two games between teams that are terrible. They don't really care. It's a higher scoring game. So I wanted to bring that up here real quick too. As far as totals, I think those are two good things to watch for here as we wrap up the NBA regular season.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. We'll have to focus that on the shows when we get together going forward after this for sure. And then baseball, fortunately, I'm off to a much better start than I was in college football or college basketball or any of the other sports. And I blame it on the COVID and no fans and whatever. But it seems like after I tweaked the models, it did a lot better. I actually finished at 65% and ranked number 1 at Sports Memo for NFL and college football combined. So something must have happened. I'm telling you, you just can't drink more than 2 IPAs. That's the key to this whole thing. Seriously. But in baseball, I'm off to a 4-1 start. The only play I lost, I actually hated. And sometimes the model will give me plays, and the machine learning will tell me this, and I overthink it. On opening day, I thought there was, what, are you kidding me? Colorado? They're not going to beat the Dodgers. Clayton Kershaw, I don't care how old he is. He could be in a wheelchair and they're going to win. But we know what happened. It was 8-5 loss, but that's the only one I did lose, and I thought I had a real good one yesterday with the Reds, especially when I saw machine learning had the Reds pretty big, and then when the public was all over St. Louis, that kind of summed it all up. So that one came through, but. It's a marathon in baseball. I've had years where I've hit 40, 46, 47%, but profit-wise, they're among the top 5 of the last 26 years. So those, for the new bettors, when you're looking at services, like Kyle or myself, if you're looking at hockey or baseball, win percentage doesn't mean anything. Somebody could say they're hitting 70% in baseball, and it might be true, but they could actually be losing money if all they're doing is betting 250 favorites and generating kind of a winning record in that fashion. But I know you agree with that, Kyle. It's just you just stay away from those big favorites. You bet 1-200 favorite and lose. You got to win 2 games in a row just to break even.
Yeah, I can't do that. I know that it's possible to have value on something that's a big favorite. We know that that's at least possible, but in that kind of situation, I'm not capable of laying that and asking my clients to lay that, because then if they lose that, And they're going to come to me and they're going to say, hey, I mean, you took a minus 220 favorite and they lost. And man, I'm hurting. And you can't really blame them for that. Who wants to buy a play that's minus 220? And we say, oh, it's a, game of the month or something. That's not what you're going to get from me. And John doesn't do that as well. This is something where, we're going to try to grind out a profit. And like John said, you want to look at units. Rather than win percentage in this, because somebody could be really good at baseball and hit 45% and be up 20 units by the end of the year because they're hitting a ton of these plus 160, plus 150. Baseball is really a marathon, not a sprint, like you said. I think that baseball is a sport that's really important to pay attention to what you've seen and what the market's going to do, and be careful. You don't have to bet every single day as much as, one day maybe you like 3 or 4 or 5 plays, but you don't have to do that every day. I like to try to take a break from baseball once in a while, clear the mind, kind of reset things. Because 6-7 months is a long time. That's a really long season. It feels like it's never going to end, and you can kind of get worn out from baseball betting. So I think it's fine to take a day or two off here and there.
Yeah, you have that luxury. Nobody forces you to do a game every day, and sometimes not doing a game is better than forcing it.
Right.
It's always better. Even if you think, oh man, I should have bet that one, it would have won. It's still the right decision to make.
Yep.
But anyway, I don't really, everybody says I like to talk, but I don't have too much to say anymore.
No, yeah, I mean, I think we covered quite a bit, and I think we'll probably do some of these going forward. I know I probably won't do quite as many shows once college basketball is over as what I've done here in the past. I like to kind of take a bit of a break, a little bit of a break, and see the family a little bit more. So we'll do these. I don't know, John, exactly how we'll set it up, but I'll come on here some of the time, and especially once NBA playoffs come around, I like to do some of those, and then also summertime, I like to kind of get ready for college football and start talking about some of the futures for that. Love college football and the NFL, so we'll see what we have coming up, but good to talk here again, and
absolutely.
I hope the listeners have gained some value. We've done a lot of college basketball shows, and I think my free plays, both with my newsletter and through these videos, have done a lot better than my paid plays. And I know some of my clients even get frustrated by that. And it's like, I'm not trying to give worse plays to clients than what I am for free. John, there's variance in this. There's going to be some year that my free plays do really poorly and my paid plays do amazing. And then the free people are going to be really upset with me. So it's going to be, it can go back and forth. And hopefully we've also helped with kind of giving you a process to bet yourself, because I know that's one thing that I like to do myself too, is not just give you picks, but also give you an insight into how you find value and how you can do this yourself. Because that finding out how to do this yourself is also really powerful, because if you want to bet yourself, finding out the process of going through this, what factors go into it, what John and I like to look at. I think we've been able to do that some, and I hope we can continue to do that here going forward.
Oh, absolutely. That's why there's no stockbrokers left in the world. They're called financial advisors now, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, it's the same thing.
Yep.
It was one. You talked about free picks. So I started this retweet this tweet for a free pick on my Twitter handle, and once you know it, I'm 8-1.
There you go.
So to your point, so now I have to make the tweet longer and say that don't expect this to be 16-2.
Right.
But it is kind of funny how those free picks will, you're just trying to give a sample of your work and the value you get from a customer gets by paying you whatever the fee is for paying it. I mean, anybody can throw darts at a dartboard and then pick those teams and say, oh, look how good I am. But I think when you read research that Kyle and I present every day, it gives you, especially the times when we lose, you immediately know why we lost. It wasn't like, oh my God, this guy just was all nothing but hype. Game of the year lost by 20 points in a college football game, and you know what, that can happen. And that's kind of why I kind of like over Sports Memo and Wager Talk. It's 3, 4, 5%, especially at Wager Talk, and that's what pros do. Pros. don't have any need to say, hey, you know what? They walk up to the betting window, and can you imagine the person on the other side? If a person said, yeah, I got my game of the year today, and it's on Georgia Tech, they would lose their minds. I mean,
right. Yeah, it's better to go about this by keeping things pretty even. I know some people flat bet. I don't have a problem with that. I usually vary my bet size some, and I do a percentage of my bankroll. But you're not going to see me pounding the table saying bet a quarter of your bankroll on one game. It's just never going to happen. I mean, we know if you take an under or something, somebody could shoot 10 of 15 on threes. It happens. If you lose a quarter of your bankroll on something like that, you're doing it wrong. You can't do something like that. If you go back afterwards, I know, John, you probably do this too. When I make a bet, afterwards I go back and I kind of grade how I did on that bet. I say, what did I get right? What did I get wrong about that?
Yep.
Because then that tells me what to do in the future. So after it's over, I've said this before, I think it's important that people need to realize it's not just a win or a loss. It's, did you get it right or did you get it wrong? Sometimes the wrong side wins. Sometimes you have the right side of a bet and it just doesn't cover. If you take plus 10, team loses by 11 in overtime, that was a really good bet. Obviously that was a really good bet. So you want to keep it in context. So I think that's important for bettors to do as well. And like you said, keeping the 3, 4, 5%. Usually I even play at a smaller percentage than that. 2, 2.5, 3%, things like that. So that way bankroll management is not as much of a problem. If you hit the slump, people aren't saying, and I know some people try to bet a bigger percentage and then they say, man, you went in one slump and I'm done. And now you get hot and I don't have anything left to play. That's a hard situation for us as handicappers because it's like, well, we know we're going to go through those slumps and we're going to get hot streaks too. So it's going to happen. And, let's hope that we can get some winners from this final game in college basketball here tonight, John, and finish the season on a winning note.
Yeah, I feel good about our plays, Kyle. I really do. And to recap them real quick here, the first one I see here is the over Butler, 2.5 made 3-pointers, getting plus 130 at DraftKings. We had Toronto Raptors as the NBA best bet system of the day. And in college hoops, what else did we have?
I like Timmy over 0.3 rebounds and assists, 31.5. So I'll say that's my play here for tonight is Timmy over. I haven't bet that one myself yet, but I'm going to. I think he's a big part of their game plan. I also think, I don't know if this is an official play for us or not, but I think if you like Baylor, I think Gonzaga is going to win, but I think if you like Baylor, that Butler to win the most outstanding player plus 700 is a good one to bet some pizza money on. That certainly has a chance. So we're looking for value bets that could pay off. Like I said, I still have the Suggs plus 600 to win the most outstanding player. I think I'm going to take some of Timmy based on that because if I think Gonzaga is going to win, and I can get Timmy at plus money. I think it's just plus 110 when I saw it. Put a little bit of something on that just because, I already have Suggs. And I think those are the only two that even have a chance if Gonzaga wins. So that's just kind of the way we look at things. So, but hopefully we can get some winning bets here to close out the college hoop season. And certainly, John, I know you've had quite a few people viewing these videos. And I wanted to say, I've been a small part of this as we go on through this. And thank you to everybody that's been viewing this. And thank you to everybody that's tuned in. John's doing a great job with these shows. And whether it's me or somebody else on here, I encourage you to keep tuning into these.
Well, I appreciate the kind words, Kyle, but you've been a big part of this this growth and this start. We're not even 2 months into it. And, very grateful for the numbers that we're getting. And I just feel that we got a long way to go before this thing levels out. Got to get the word out there. And, one day at a time, it's going to happen.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
So we'll leave it at that. And, again, thanks for being such a big part of this. Thanks for being on today. 1 hour of your valuable time is greatly appreciated. So for Kyle Hunter and myself and the Predictive Playbook, may all the wins be yours.